So my name's MattButtery. I'm the Chief Executive of TripleP UK. This is what I've got for us this morning. Why is parenting so important? Just make sure that we're all on the same page. Then I'll move into what is TripleP, what is the TripleP system. How many programs do you think are in the TripleP system? 5 or 6? Higher, lower?
Well, no, more actually.
A few more, higher, lower? 9? There's more than 20 programs in the TripleP system. And you can consider them a little bit like Lego bricks. So you can use individual bricks and you can play quite nicely with an individual Lego brick like I did as a child, or you can take a couple of bricks and start to build different things with them. And that's probably the most helpful way to think about the system. We'll talk a bit more about this in a second, but it's actually a very flexible system that can respond to many different needs, from childhood nutrition that you were talking about over here, to behaviour and emotional problems, and through to couple relationship issues, through to neurodevelopmental problems and issues, autism, learning difficulties. So you've got a really wide range within the system. So we'll talk about what the system is. I'm then going to go quickly through what the offer is here. Now we might stop at that point if you're feeling more comfortable, but the danger is I tell you what TripleP can do, and then what's important to do is say, but what are we actually going to do here in Nottingham? And what are we doing here in Nottingham? And then I'm going to give you a bit of an exemplar from the power of positive parenting and treat you all as parents. How many of you are parents? Great, okay. How many of you have got under ones? You think so? You're not sure? I have that feeling too, regularly. Oh, okay. Good clarification. Thank you. Sort of 1 to 3s, 3 to 5s. Yeah, 5 to 9s. Age ranges are getting slightly wider, 9 to 12s. Teenagers? Yeah, I can see that. I've got them. Quite a few. So let's just go back. Why is parenting important? Well, the need to make parenting programs available is strongly supported. If you look at all of these big, international health and social care institutions, the World Health Organization, NICE, the UN, they all talk about parenting programs. They all talk about parenting programs like TripleP, evidence-based parenting programs. So there's a lot of national dialogue. Many of you may have picked up back in January, our last Prime Minister, David Cameron, talked a lot about parenting and the need to make parenting programs widely available and aspirational. We should have a nation where it's as normal as going to antenatal classes to see that a parenting program's there, and if you need it, you might attend to it. Well, why? Well, the interest in parenting is well justified because it's that primary system in which children grow up. So the influence of that system is pervasive. So whether it be language, communication, whether it be social skills, whether it be peer relationships, whether it be the emotional regulation, what goes on at school, physical health and well-being, parenting has an influence on all of those things. When it comes to parenting programs, then we expect that there should be some benefits for children. Yeah? And there are. So we know that the evidence is good that evidence-based parenting interventions like TripleP have an impact on children's emotional and behavioural problems, conduct, substance abuse, delinquent behaviours, lifestyle. What many people don't talk about as much is that parenting programs also have some benefits for the adults that are involved. So you will always see drops in depression and stress scores when you're doing a parenting program with parents. Those of you who've got children, when things are not going quite so well at home, how do you feel? Usually a little bit stressed. Sometimes when it's been going on for a period of time, a little bit depressed. And so sometimes it's a challenge sometimes, isn't it, when we come to a family and we see maybe maternal depression, or we see that there's clearly some mental health problems in the family, to try and work out what starts where and what's the primary problem and what's the secondary sequelae. But parents benefit. So parents benefit from parenting programs, their own mental health. The couple benefits from parenting programs, couple conflict, work functioning. If things aren't going well at home, does it have an impact on work? That person who's persistently late in the morning, it might not be because they're disorganised, it might just be because they've got stuff going on at home and they're struggling to get things organised in the morning and get everybody out. So why do we need parenting programs? Well, the truth is that a disturbingly large number of problems that children face are preventable. And no group actually has the monopoly on coercive parenting practices. We often think about targeting parenting or these sorts of interventions at the bad parents or at the lowest socio-economic group. Actually, good parents might not have or feel they have the skills to parent. They care a lot about their children and they're good and they care, but actually they haven't potentially got the skills to manage their parents. And that crosses the socioeconomic divide. So when it comes to threatening behaviour, shouting behaviour, hitting children, or even hitting children with an object, these are your socioeconomic groups. And what you see is roughly, there's no statistically significant difference between the groups. Equally, when we think about targeting, there is an argument to say when it comes to children's emotional behavioural problems, those in the lowest income demographic do have the largest percentage of problems, 36 odd percent. But that leaves 64% somewhere else. And so actually, wherever you're coming from, whatever group you're in, you may need a little bit of help or support at some point. And as we've said, family life has an impact on the adults too. Many parents will report high stress. Many parents will report being depressed. That 1 in 4 figure of being depressed. 31% of parents have sought professional help for their child's behavioural or emotional problems. Where do you think they go? Or where in your experience do parents go for that sort of help? GP, good one. Health visitors, yeah. Where else do people? Children's centres, yeah. Family. Where else? School, yeah. I think you've probably named the kind of core thing. And of course, anybody asking for help can be a challenge. But the further we reach out to ask for help, the more of a challenge it can be. So 31% of parents have sought professional help, but only a minority have actually attended a parenting programme. And so at TripleP, we believe that parenting is for everybody. Parenting programmes are for everybody. It doesn't mean everybody should attend, but it means that we should make them accessible to everybody. We may well target a particular area or a particular demographic, but in truth, as I've already shown you, there's a reasonably compelling argument to say that everybody can benefit from a little bit of skills, help, support at some point in their life, and that this isn't the domain of bad parents, because bad parents can actually care an awful lot about their children, but giving them the skills, and they cross those income divides. Parenting has that pervasive impact on children's development. We've already seen parenting has an influence on both adults and on the children. This is a slightly complex sentence, but actually quite a powerful statement. Coercive parenting and problematic parenting doesn't occur in a vacuum either, and neither does pro-social ones. That means, the environment in which children grow up, the friends, the neighbours, what other parents see other parents doing has a huge impact on what you do in your own parenting. Because in reality, most of us parent out of that, we either do what our parents did to us or we don't do what our parents did with us. We make that binary choice. I liked that and I'm going to do that in my family. Or, how many of you have had that? We were talking about it a moment ago, weren't we? You have that moment where you're like, oh, I sound like my mother, I sound like my father. I can't remember her saying this to me, don't stick too close to the TV, keep your mouth closed when you're eating, whatever it is, And so we make that binary choice. But the other thing we also do is we also watch what other parents are doing, and we take those social norms, what's socially acceptable. And if it's socially acceptable to hit our children, then, well, we can hit them. But if it's not socially acceptable and everybody turns at that moment, that whole thing of parenting doesn't occur in a vacuum. So sometimes you can say, well, maybe the wrong parents have come to this course. Well, maybe they're not the wrong parents. Maybe they're the right parents. Maybe they're the influencers. Maybe they're the parent that the next parent that is thinking of either shouting or caving sees the model something different and thinks, actually, I could do that too, and take some confidence from that. But of course, the potential impact is diminished because many parents, relatively few parents attend programs. And that starts to give you the reason why there are 20 different programs in the TripleP system. Because we started where most parenting programs started with a multi-week, we start with the one-to-one program, but then a group program. And most people, when they think of parenting, think of 10 parents in a room for 8 to 10 weeks in a group. And that's 3 of those 20 odd programs that I've just described to you. But if we want to make this thing accessible to a wider audience, then not everybody needs that much, and also not everybody would want to access it in that format. And so you start to think about, if you want to reach a population, how are you going to do that? The other thing we know is that parents want programs that work. So TripleP is, according to the UN, the most evidence-based parenting program in the world. Does that mean it always works? No. Nothing is a magic bullet. There's no magic bullets anywhere and solutions to every problem. The evidence base for TripleP, though, is quite vast and growing quite rapidly. So there's over 110 now randomised controlled trials. So that means basically where you've tested it against care as usual, and you've had some sort of counterfactual where you've said, if nothing happened, what would be the impact? If we did nothing, if we did TripleP, what would be the impact? And then you've looked at that and compared the difference of the journeys that parents have made. That's the sort of thing we use in drug trials. So you've got a huge evidence and growing evidence base from across the world, actually 20 different nations involved in that evidence, and it's taking off exponentially. And what does it show? Well, if you boil all of those papers down and all of that research down, then this is what you see commonly across all of the TripleP programs. You see fewer emotional and behavioural problems in children. Few. That's good. That's what it's meant to be doing. You see greater parental confidence in the use of positive parenting practices. You see less negative parenting, less stress, less depression and less anger in parents. And you also see less marital conflict, less relationship conflict over parenting, as we both get onto the same page. When things are going wrong, then it can be easy to say it's your fault or it's your fault, or we just end up in an argument about this. And whatever structure of the family looks like, when things are going well and when we're both on the same page, even if there's problems, if we're both on the same page, that power of agreement is powerful. And that's been independently replicated across different sites, different cultures, and different countries. Where do you think you get in the world? If I told you that TripleP's been substantively delivered in 26 nations of the world, where do you think you get the biggest effects? Let's see. Where do you think you get the biggest effects? What sort of culture? Where?
Western cultures.
Western cultures, any other offers? So TripleP's been delivered from, from here to America, to Australia, South Africa, Kenya, China, Iran. Iran is the biggest effect size. From collectivistic cultures to individualistic cultures, TripleP survives in terms of its impact. Because we're not telling parents, how to parent. We're giving them the skills, we're giving them confidence to instill the skills, the values, the behaviours, the beliefs that they want to in their children. So it's culturally robust across those countries and across those different sorts of cultures. And why? Because we encourage parents to determine their own goals. We give them a menu of options to make informed choices. As we're already hearing, there's a system, so there's a multimodal methods of presenting and delivering the content of TripleP. Different doses, different formats, different target audiences. And the protocols for engaging parents and managing the process issues that naturally come up when you're doing some sort of parenting intervention. So what is TripleP then? Well, there you go. There's the 25 countries that TripleP's delivered in. I'm counting Great Britain as a single country because we still have a union, and it's actually in 19 languages other than English. And we've trained approximately 55,000 providers. We think we've reached over 7 million parents, which is a huge achievement globally to have had an impact on. And as I said, you're seeing the same results in those different sorts of cultural contexts. Because actually parenting the world over is a similar thing. We did some work recently in Kenya, and we were working with some families that were living in quite extreme poverty. And whenever we go into a new country, we always do that piece where we ask the local parents, what are the issues for you? And one of the mums in the group said, well, I want to stop my child from scavenging off the food dumps. And you start to have that, crumbs, have we got the right fit, and then she says, and then I want him to be polite to me. And then I want him to stop fighting with his brother and sister. And then I'd like him to go to school. And then you think, hang on, do you know what? 90% of the issues the world over are the same, because whether you're in Nairobi, whether you're in New York, and you're in a supermarket, and your kid starts to escalate, you've got you've got three choices. You're either going to escalate yourself and shout, you're going to cave and give them whatever they want, or you're going to use positive parenting, you're going to be authoritative in your parenting, and you're going to engage. And that's the same wherever you are in the world, which makes sense of that cultural acceptability. So TripleP is a system of programs, and it's a flexible system of parenting and family support. And so what it allows you to do through those different Lego bricks is combine prevention, early intervention, and a targeted approach. So that doesn't, don't mishear me. Well, it's early intervention, therefore it's all very light touch. We've just actually put in a bid with Nottingham City Council, working in residential settings with kids that are in residential care using a TripleP programme, and then also with some other authorities looking at kids right on the very cusp of care and then working through into foster care. So when I say targeted, it can deal with the kind of, the more heavier end, if you like, of the parent, but also be applicable to that wider population. So giving you that population-based system. It's multidisciplinary in focus, which is great, because you're a multidisciplinary audience, and actually, as you've already said, you're the sorts of people that parents turn to for help, support and advice. So whether it's you delivering the programme, or as you're doing today, finding out about the programme and being able to accurately signpost or encourage or support, then that's an important part. TripleP can scale to a whole public health approach, so to reach the whole population. I know Martin and colleagues have been in touch with some of our colleagues over in Ireland, and the health executive over there deliver a whole population. They've reached about 20% of the available parents in their local area. Huge achievement for a small team of people. And they've seen population health shifts in emotional and behavioural problems. So the programme does what you would expect. About 80% of parents drop out of the clinical range in the tools that they're using. But they've also shown a population impact that goes beyond those that attended. And you ask the question, well, why? How does that work? Well, of those that didn't attend, 70% had heard of TripleP. And of those 70%, roughly 2/3 have been given tip, advice, workbook, or been shown something by a parent that did. So that whole idea of fanning that social contagion effect, because as somebody said earlier, parents turn to their friends and their family for support and help. And if you've put a bit of something into a community that's evidence-based, actually you can fan that social contagion effect and get that sharing going on and having an impact way beyond those that have actually come to the programme. It's evidence-based, as I've said, and it's based on this self-regulatory framework, which I'll talk about in a second. So we structure the TripleP programmes into 5 levels, and the reason we do that is because they then talk about the intensity of that intervention, which you would obviously match against the breadth of the reach. So the very intensive interventions, the kind of group interventions at level 4, which are the TripleP group, we think 10% of the parent population absolute max is what would need that. That's where you've got emotional and behavioural problems in that kind of clinical range. But actually, when you come down to the levels 2 and 3, these brief parenting advice, like the seminar I'm going to show you shortly, that's a kind of every parent. Doesn't mean every parent has to come, but it would be applicable to every parent, because most parents are doing a pretty good job. And so for them, that kind of thumbs up of you doing a good job. I think, again, we were talking earlier, weren't we, that reinforcing of, actually, I'm doing some really good things. Thank you for telling me that I'm doing some good things. And also maybe just leaving me with a few pieces of tips or advice of something that I could do differently. That kind of light touch approach. So that would be a kind of level 2, a seminar, maybe something that you embed in transition into preschool. Transition into that nursery placement, transition maybe to primary school, and then even thinking later, transition to secondary school. That kind of moment where all parents are wobbling a little bit. And we're open to help, we're open to advice because it's something new to us. In the same way as, we're open at that kind of antenatal, perinatal phase, parents open up again at the kind of transitions phases. And so maybe injecting these sorts of things into those times is where many parents will come along, and that's supportive to them. Level 3 then would be a narrow-focused parenting intervention, so the discussion groups that you're delivering here. So they're one-off 2-hour interventions focused on a single topic. So it might be something like bedtimes or managing fighting and aggression. And in a 2-hour period, you'll deal with that specific issue for parents. Now, I don't know about you, but I once went to a gym and they asked me to commit to 8 weeks, and I struggled. But that's often what we ask people to do in parenting programs. I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just reminding us that actually, if we're struggling to commit, then we're normal people too. And so actually, but 2 hours, I can commit to 2 hours. I can come to 2 hours, particularly if you're going to solve bedtimes for me, or you're going to give me, you're going to do something around fighting and aggression. So those kind of single, narrow focus issues. There's also a one-to-one variant called primary care, which you're delivering here, again, thinking one-to-one about particular issues, and maybe having a number of sessions over a couple of weeks, maybe 1 to 4 sessions, 20, 30 minutes long, trying to help a parent solve that particular toilet training, whatever it be, that particular issue, working in an evidence-based way with a family. Up to what level 4 is those broad focus, what most people think of when they think of parenting programs, group-based programs, one-to-one programs. And then level 5 programs, which you're not currently delivering here, would be what we call adjunct programs. So they would be intensive parts of the system for parents that maybe are struggling with their own anger or their own way in which they attribute children's behaviour. So maybe where a child is at risk of physical or emotional abuse or neglect, and where the parent is having problems with their own regulation issues, where there may be issues within the couple relationship. There's a lifestyle programme up there for parents of children that are overweight between 5 and 10. There's also some lifestyle seminars in here. But so you've got that kind of diversity within level 5. And as you say, you don't need all of these programs necessarily, but they are like Lego, so you can build them together. And then this system, we've got programs for 0 to 12s, programs for parents of teens, and then a program called Stepping Stones, which is for parents of children with disabilities, neurodevelopmental disabilities, autism, learning disabilities, etc. And so when you start to think about the levels and you start to think about the delivery formats, we've got TripleP online in there as well, I've got some self-directed stuff, you start to think about the different age ranges. Can you now start to see how you get to 20? Start to see how you get to 20 different breaks. And as we've already said, there's different modalities for delivering the TripleP content, individual, web, self-directed. Do any of you remember back in the noughties, there was that Driving Mum and Dad Mad TV show? It was one of the early reality TV shows, and it actually was TripleP. They were using TripleP with a group of parents. So an interesting impact from those sorts of shows. Manchester University did an interesting study showing that actually by watching TV, parents are influenced in their parenting behaviours, funnily enough. But the power of mass media. Delivery over the phone, small group, large group like the seminar. And as I've said, you've got the core TripleP programme, and then you've got some various variants, which we've talked about before. Going a little bit deeper then, TripleP is based on 5 core principles. And these are the 5 core principles: having a safe, interesting environment. So home safety in there, but also that kind of stimulating environment, things, good, positive activities for children to do. That's safe, that's interesting, that's engaging, that's educational. Having a positive learning environment, it being that not just being safe, but that being positive, being emotionally available to our children, making time for them, being able to engage, to encourage, to praise them, to support them in the things that they're doing and help them learn. Using assertive discipline. Most people, when they come to a parenting intervention, usually want to get to that one quickly, and we usually say, actually, that's kind of the end of a process. The beginning of a process starts with that relationship, building that kind of strong, nurturing attachment with your child and having that relationship bridge over which some of these other things travel. But having assertive discipline techniques and having those things that are, you're able, if that isn't working, you've got something else to try, rather than I'm out of ideas, which is, I think, for most parents when they escalate or when they cave, because it's, I now don't know what to do, I've got nothing left. TripleP aims to give lots of different strategies, so it's not just one thing. If that doesn't work, we try something different. Having realistic expectations of ourselves and of our children. Not expecting the 2-year-old, to go and get ready for going out in the next 5 minutes, but being able to break things down for them, but also for ourselves, having realistic expectations of what we can achieve in a morning, or the fact that we're not going to be a perfect parent, because there isn't one. We're all going to have moments where we think, did that, could have done that differently. And ultimately taking care of ourselves. So TripleP is based around those 5 core principles. And then in the kind of core programme, there are then 17 strategies that we go through within the training with the parents. And so if you went on a kind of level 4 intervention, you'd get all of these, and you'd have ample time to practice and the support to go through all or any of these that you wanted to. In the lighter touch variants, you might touch on them, or you might focus on a number that are applicable to that sort of behavioural issue, and then still give the parents choice. The key really here is that, 3 of these domains are about promoting good relationships, encouraging the behaviour that we want, teaching new skills, and then there are some behavioural management strategies. But the idea being that there's that multiplicity. I also said that TripleP is based on self-regulation. How many of you have come across this self-regulatory framework before? Yeah, 1 or 2. So, putting it simply, a parent comes to you and says, what do I do about this? Okay, what do I do? My child's doing this, what do I do? Okay, there are 2 approaches that we can take as practitioner. One is to say, well, what you should do is this. Now, what happens, how many of you have done that? Come on, let's be honest, I've done it. How many of you have done that? Parents come to you and you've said, well, what you should do is this. How many of you, and this, just now be really honest, how many of you then had that parent back the next week saying,
Didn't work.
That didn't work. Now what should I do? Okay, and I won't ask you to put up your hands how many of you keep going down that. That is the opposite of self-regulation. So that is not self-regulation. Yeah? So self-regulation really is about building the skills in parents and building the confidence in parents that they can do this for themselves, and giving them the choices, giving them the tools that they can use, and then encouraging them when they use them. And if it doesn't work, encouraging them to problem solve and think differently. So whether it be that self-efficacy, that encouragement, you can do this, you can have a go, building them up, giving some self-management tools. So we've just been through some concrete strategies. Lots of complex psychology in those. We don't talk about them. We just talk about these are the strategies. Let's try and run these particular routines. Let's practice them on each other. Let's have a go and let's try it. So giving them some tools to self-manage, some tools to monitor their children's behaviour, to think about what might the problem be. How might I work out some problem solving? When they come back then and it's like, well, so a TripleP response to, what do you think I should do will be, that's a really good question. Loads of parents ask that. What do you think from all we've done? What do you think you could have a go at? And of course the parent says, well, I think I could try descriptive praise and then this, do you want to practice that? Do you feel confident in that? I feel pretty confident, or, we'll practice it. And then next week they come back and say, how did it go? You were amazing. You know what you told me to do? It was amazing. And personal agency would be then, oh, thanks so much. But it wasn't really me, was it? It was you. Do you remember? I asked you and you chose. And so, well done you. Amazing. You've done it. That's fantastic. So, of course, what you're building is that self-sufficiency within the parent. Because within a parenting group, even within group or standard, you're not going to deal with every single parenting issue they're ever going to face. But if you've given them the confidence, if you've given them the skills, if you've helped them to problem solve, if you've then encouraged them with that personal agency of, you've done it, you had a quick win, that was amazing, you're fantastic, then there's confidence next time when something comes up, say, I can do this. I might not get it right first time, but actually I can do this, and I've got the capacity to do this, which is ultimately what you're looking for, which is that self-regulatory behaviour that then they also are passing on to their children, and that self-control and that ability. The other kind of key domain of TripleP is this minimally sufficient intervention. So the reason that we have a multiple interventions as well is not only for the population, but also because we believe you should give parents just enough and not too much. Parents' time is valuable, practitioner time is valuable, but parents' time is valuable. And actually, if they need help with bedtimes, then why don't we try and give them some help with the bedtimes, rather than, well, why don't you come on this 10-week course and we'll get to bedtimes at some point? Because if, you've got a 4-year-old that now isn't sleeping because you just had a new baby, the chances are 10 weeks is going to be impossible for you to get to. But a single session, maybe a single session done in your home on a one-to-one basis is over a couple of weeks, could very well solve that problem for you. So TripleP then is giving you a public health model of parenting. It's a suite of evidence-based interventions, not a single program. From infancy through to adolescence. It's blending that universal and targeted programs, and I think even within that I would go further and say, as we've already looked, it doesn't necessarily mean that, well, you're a parent with lots of problems, you need a targeted program, or it's giving parental choice and allowing parents to access the level of support that they need, and using this self-regulatory framework, because that choice is all part of that self-regulatory framework. Actually, I could do with a bit more help, or do you know what, I've got enough. I don't need. So the challenge then is to increase the number of parents who complete a parenting programme, to enhance the competence and confidence at population level, in truth, and therefore to reduce the prevalence. Let's just have a look at
My name's Tammy. I'm married to Shane. We have 6 children. We have a dog and 7 budgies. We live in a 2-bedroomed house. My children are aged 11, 9, 7, 4, and we have 15-month-old twins, Sophie May and Archie. I thought I was doing a pretty good job, but I wasn't, because my kids didn't have no respect for me. And I didn't feel, I always thought, well, where was I going wrong? Because my husband is very firm, and that they love him, do as they're told, respect him. I realised I did do practically everything for them. So little changes had to come into place, like sitting nicely and not jumping on the sofa as a trampoline. Just a lot of little things, making their own beds, Whereas I would always do that. It would be in my kind of routine, but they do that now. It's a lot of little things. Everything has changed since doing the TripleP. The relationship with my husband, I feel so much better towards him. He feels better with me because he knows that I'm being firm but fair, doing what I mean, where everything I say, I'm carrying it out, which he likes that. The children know that I'm not a soft touch anymore. So yes, overall, everything has just got better. I feel so much excited now because it's lovely having rewards. The children are giving me respect. They're telling me they love me. They're saying please and thank you. I'm asking them to do something once and they're listening to me and not messing around. And I've had the support of my husband. So I'm feeling, yes, it's better. And I'm telling myself I have won that one, because usually the children would win over me every time. Everybody's so much happier. I'm happier, the children are happier. You only have to get a few things right to make a lot of things just come smoothly.
You only have to get a few things right to make a lot of things run smoothly. I think that's a fantastic testimony. So just to talk briefly about what you're doing currently here in Nottingham. So we've got 4 of those programs from the suite, and actually you've got them across 3 of the levels. So you've got the light touch seminar intervention, the brief parenting intervention at level 3, the discussion groups, and the primary care, and then I think you've started to deliver level 4 group as well, which is an 8-week program. Real quick, I mean, we've already sort of talked about this. That's what's involved in the discussion groups. That's a complete parenting intervention in 2 hours on those sorts of topics at the moment, and we're adding more topics to the list. But they've come from parents as the kind of hot topics, if you like, that parents will come back time and time again for. Primary care takes a one-to-one delivery mode, and there's a broader range of tip sheets that sit behind that the practitioner would use with the parent. And the idea being that you've got 1 to 4 sessions. Session 1 would usually be about that kind of trying to help the parent diagnose what the actual issue is and start to think about that and problem solve. And then sessions 2 to 3 would be about them coming up with a plan and implementing it against some support. For some parents, 1 is enough. For some, 4 is enough. And so it's that, again, taking the minimally sufficient approach to supporting parents in that one-to-one format. Some benefits of those, you can increase the availability. They're light touch in terms of the support they provide, but they're targeted in terms of the support they provide to particular issues, solutions to common problems, early detection, advice, help destigmatise and normalise parenting. Oh yeah, I did that, it was pretty good. We went along to that, that was pretty good. Extremely cost effective. And obviously what you've got then is an internal referral mechanism to slightly more intensive interventions, which that was really good, but I feel like I could do with more help. Well, why don't you go along and try the group? So you've got that internal referral mechanism within TripleP. The group programme is 8 weeks long. It's actually only 5 group sessions. So it's 4 group sessions, then it's followed by 3 phone calls. Individual consultations can be done as phone call, can be done in person, and then a final session. Some people will do a pre-session just to check everybody's on board with what they're actually coming to. But usually the last session then is some sort of celebration. But the idea being from the very start of that, you're encouraging that self-regulatory framework. You're helping the parents to establish a plan and have a go and get some quick wins. So the telephone calls is all about that promoting self-sufficiency from the beginning. Level 4 will do complex behavioural problems, addresses multiple settings, normalises parenting experiences again. And you then have got the referral on to more specialist services where parents do need more help or support or advice. And then level 2, which is where we're going to sort of jump into in a second, would be the seminars. These are really 60 to 90 minute seminars, 60 minutes of delivery, 30 minutes of Q&A. There's a range of those. There's actually now we've added a range, we're just about to add a range on healthy living, so lifestyle seminars, looking at lifestyle issues. But power of positive parenting, raising confident, competent children, raising resilient children. And that giving advice
For me, the best thing
Oh,
was...
just before I jump into this. So the danger with those lighter touch interventions is I can see that you are a room who are convinced that these are powerful and useful, but sometimes people say to us, come on, really? 60 minutes in a seminar, what happens as a result of that, really? Well, here's some parents who have been to one seminar, level 2 seminar, and here's the things that they're coming out and saying as a result of being in that.
For me, the best thing was there's a few different strategies that I can use at home with my toddler to ensure that I avoid going down the shouting track at him when he gets frustrating.
One of the key takeaways for me was more around my behaviour, not my son's behaviour.
I'm going to definitely lower my voice and stay positive.
Reasonable expectations. There are a lot of things that I know my son can be doing for himself that I tend to do for him. So I'm going to be putting that into place very soon, as soon as I get home.
Good value parenting or really worthwhile parenting advice.
It's good to hear an expert and to sort of analyse those things, not in too much depth, but to get the key pointers and those take-home messages that we talked about. So it was really worthwhile. I found it really encouraging.
Great. So do you see parents coming out with concrete things that they're going to change, encouragement that they're doing the right things?